Welcome back to College Football Addiction. What may be one of the more shocking results in the ACC last week, but a quick chance to put that out of their minds will come for the Louisville Cardinals this weekend. Let's talk a little bit about it in our video today presented by BetUS. Jeremy, how's it going, my man?
Been better, man. Been better.
It's hard for me to listen. We've had people on after really tough losses. You know, I had my girl Allie on after they, got blown out by Miami and Texas A&M, UF, and I've had LSU folks on after really bad losses. But it's hard for me to feel a lot of sympathy this year. I do a little bit, I do empathize, but the sympathy part of it is not there for people. And that's not. I'm usually a very soft heart, very kind, but it's hard for me. People lose a bad game, and I'm like, get in line, buddy. We've lost 9 of them.
I was gonna say, you can lose that empathetic edge, especially when I'm talking about our first heartbreaking loss, and you've had 9 of them. So you're kind of like dead to the emotion and the feeling of that. So yeah, I don't think anybody expected it. The odds makers certainly didn't. We didn't. Just a bevy of penalties. And listen, I love our coach, but I have no idea why, with 15 seconds left in the game, you go for it at midfield, 4th and 4, and you give them the opportunity to get in to field goal range and end this game. Good teams overcome bad starts. Good teams overcome mistakes, but good teams can't overcome bad starts, mistakes, and poor decisions all in the same game. So it was just a bad game, man. I've never. I was talking to my podcast team yesterday after the show. The last time that I can remember us having such a disappointing loss, we were, I want to say we're top 10 in the country, and we went down to South Florida to play, and we were 30-point favorites and lost 45-14. That one's a little bit more gut wrenching than this one because I think there were higher stakes then, and you're talking about supposed to win by 30 and you lose by 30. Yeah. That's a bigger difference. But this one's got everybody in their feels, and I get it partially I don't. You're still talking about you have the opportunity from having 4 wins with the prior coach one year and 5 the next to having 10 wins with the new coach and then a possible 8-9 this year. So it is what it is, man. I've told you time and time again that I have a little bit of a different perspective because I actually played the game, and not that makes me know more than everybody else, but it's just a different perspective, and I still feel like we could end up with a really good season. Obviously, the 3 7-point losses to top 10 teams in the CFP or top 12 teams, whatever it ends up being, hurt because that could be even winning 1 or 2 of those could have made this loss yesterday be the one that every team stumbles and has a loss they shouldn't have. That would have made this a little bit easier. But the facts are we have lost 4 games by 24 points, and one of them to a really, really, really bad Stanford team. I really just I don't know how else to explain it, man. Yeah.
And I don't mean to put the silver lining on it, but if you almost, from where you were 3 weeks ago, if you almost just spin it as, if you'd have lost the Clemson game, nobody would have been shocked. Right. And so maybe you come out if you can rebound, right, and beat Pitt, beat Kentucky, win a bowl game, maybe you come out with the same record you thought you might have 3 weeks ago anyway. Right. And so there's an opportunity to turn it around. Right. And you got to win your next 2 games. And then I don't really believe that the result of bowl games matters much. Sometimes it's nice to get from that 9th to that 10th just to say it was a double dip. But it's bowl games to me are if you win, great. If you lose, they didn't matter, right?
Right.
But the chance to get to 9, would certainly feel better than it does right now. I'll tell you, to be honest with you. So I think I've shown you this, but I've got a 3 TV set up in the back. And when they went up 35-21, I'll get right back to chatting with Jeremy, but first, check out BetUS this week if you want to bet on this Louisville-Pittsburgh game. Louisville right now an 8.5-point favorite. Right now, you can use our code YouTube150 to get a 150% sign-up bonus over on BetUS. That's on your first deposit. Your next two deposits are at a 125% bonus. All three of those up to $2,000 if you like the Cards or if you like the Pitt Panthers. Make sure that you're betting with BetUS. Make sure that you're using our code YouTube150 as they've upped the game for you. Actually, right before, I think Stanford scored right before the end of the third quarter to cut it to one score, and you're like, this might be a good fourth quarter. But then when Louisville scored to go up 2 scores with under 10 to go, I thought like, okay, well, I flipped it off. I was like, I'm, going to find a game that's a little closer to try and monitor and see what's going on. And then, it happened so fast. I mean, obviously Stanford scored late, but then you talked about the decision to go for it. What was interesting to me is down below, I rewatched the highlights again this morning or this afternoon right before we got on, and the highlights said to go for it on like 4th and 13 or more, which is interesting. Like the analytics, like on the bottom of the screen when they ended up going for it late, which is interesting to me. Again, you're thinking, well, there's a chance they pick it up. There's a chance that it gets blocked. There's a chance that, they still would have to get 25 yards to get into field goal range, which they ended up getting with the personal foul penalty and everything else that happened. But just the mistakes late, it is a complete kick to the groin. Ultimately penalties like that, to me kind of fall on coaching. Like you just can't make, like the personal foul penalty to me, I don't want to put it on one thing. You shouldn't have been in a 3-point game with Stanford late anyway, or a tie game, but just the personal foul is really tough, and I've seen, I was at a Bucks game where we did that once where we literally I've seen the Seminoles do it too, where you now never like at the end of a game. It's always been like into the half or something like that. But where a personal foul late hit out of bounds with 3 seconds left costs you 3 points. And that happens in the first half. You probably come back from it. No big deal. Happens at the end of the game. Kid, of course, you almost knew he was going to step up and make a career long. You have the offsides, and he lines up and makes a 52-yarder. And just mistake after mistake after mistake there at the end. And then, like I said, you were up 2 scores with less than 10 to go, and you obviously had a chance at that moment to, if you go score again at any point in the game, you win. If you get any kind of stop late in the game, you win. Obviously, Stanford had a wide receiver just absolutely go off, and so hats off to that kid for having a career-type day. But, man, just the ultimate, like, letting one slip through your fingers if you're Louisville.
Absolutely. And I want to say this loud and clear. The young man that went off sides at the end of the game, Quincy Riley, had made he is definitely all ACC cornerback, and he had shut down their typical leading receiver the entire game, A.O. Minor. And I don't know if that's how you say his name. That's how I'm going to. And all the way to the fourth quarter had shut him down. And then he ends up getting a garbage touchdown. Well, we thought it was a garbage touchdown, and making a big catch on the next play. But, like, without Quincy shutting him down the whole game, maybe it's a bigger deficit. It's like you said, you can't really just point at one turnover. But to me, and again, I don't like to criticize a coach when they're doing a good job throughout the Coach Brown's done a good job this year. He did a good job last year. But when we went to fourth down, I looked over at my brother and I said, okay, there's 17 seconds left. We're going to squib this down to about the 5-yard line, and we'll go win this in overtime. And the second that he went for it, I knew it was a wrap. Even though, like, I think we were on I said midfield, we were at the 45-yard line, I think. And we had made so many mistakes all day long. I knew we were just a couple penalties away from giving them that game. So I don't understand that. I would like to ask him, like, why didn't you punt it? And I don't want to hear analytics, because analytics aren't always correct, obviously. And we've had a couple of, this ain't the first questionable fourth down that we've had this year. So if we're depending on analytics, we need to throw the analytics thing in the trash can with the green dot helmets we were using at the beginning of the year, and send it to the landfill, because it's not working. I can only imagine that maybe our guys. So I know that you remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked to you about how we were having a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of flags that we shouldn't have. And the week before the Clemson game, I was bragging because we cleaned up those mistakes. Then the Clemson game happened. We had almost no mistakes. So I don't know what caused us to revert back to pre Boston College penalty playing team. But the good thing is that's something that can be fixed. It's it sucks that it took this to get us refocused and stuff, but it's football. It's a game. Things happen. You just got to move on and get focused and get ready. And we've got to. I mean, Pittsburgh's not a, a rollover team. Like they're a good team. They even played really well this past week with a backup quarterback, and I expect to get their all on Senior Day this Saturday.
Yeah, I Pittsburgh, kind of limping into this game, but you do admire, like you just said, their effort against Clemson was really, really good, and it took a kind of a miraculous Cade Klubnik score at the end of that game for Clemson to escape with their slim ACC hopes still alive. I do. I kind of lean Louisville here because I do think they bounce back, but yeah, Pitt not a team that I think you can sleep on. Now, I do think that there are some pathways to Louisville kind of blowing it wide open against Pitt, who really going into that Clemson game, I didn't think they had a chance, and they obviously impressed me with the way they played, but Pitt certainly not been the same team since their 7-0 start, as they've dropped 3 in a row. And I tend to think that Louisville bounces back. And then right now I see they're like an 8.5-point favorite over on BetUS. And so I think Louisville bounces back here. I think they probably play a little bit better. I think offensively it'll be tough for Pitt to keep up with them. But a team that you very much have to take seriously. Narduzzi's always got a super physical team, a team that doesn't necessarily make a lot of mistakes, in the penalty game. They've had some turnovers, but with Holstein not in there, maybe that has improved a little bit. A game that I do think that Louisville is in a good spot for, but they certainly need to show up if they want to avoid what happened last week.
Listen, I mean, the 8.5-point favorite thing is cool, but we were 20.5-point favorites last week, and that didn't work out very well. I've always been, and I know you remember from earlier in the season, I've said, well, this team's got to prove it to me. This team's got to prove it to me. I'm not a blind faith loyalist as far as preseason hype and expectations are concerned, and they proved it to me. And I felt even through the SMU loss and the Miami loss, and Notre Dame as well, I really felt like we had a good team. And this past week has shattered all my confidence. So I won't go in saying, oh, well, we're 8-point favorites, so we should take care of them. They're going to have to prove it to me again, and I'm going to, especially with it being the end of the season, it's very easy for these kids to be like, well, we're not going to get to the ACC championship game, we're not going to get to the college football playoff. Let's just relax, chill, and just get these last 2 games out of the way. Be very easy for them to, especially since we're in the NIL era now, and the kids get their money and run when it's time to go. So I just hope we can get refocused like we had been, and we can, because as you said, these are not doo-doo teams that we're playing. Excuse the poor choice of words there. These are not awful teams that we're playing at the end of the year. As much as it pains me to say, even our last game of the year, which I won't name them by names because that's offensive to me, but they played really good against Georgia and Ole Miss, and they've got Texas this week, and I don't think they're going to be blown out. Now, I would love for them to be, so please prove me wrong. Lose by 40 for all I care, but these are not we don't have Austin Peay and Jacksonville State these next 2 weeks like we did at the beginning of the season. We've got a mid-level SEC team and a Pittsburgh team that a couple weeks ago looked like they were going to pencil themselves into the ACC title game. So it's all about how these kids react and all about how much they care about the game. And I think that we can, and it's odd for me cheering against Pittsburgh because I'm a Steelers fan, and I know it's not the same thing, but it's also nice when we play them up there to be able to go up there and sit in my home stadium and cheer for Louisville. But I think got off on a tangent there. Sorry. I think that we should be able to handle Pittsburgh. I think 8.5 is a good spread. Before the spread came out, I had Louisville by 10, so I think that that's pretty good.
Yeah. If it certainly won't erase it, but if Louisville could win their next two games against one of the better teams in the ACC and then a rival, I do think it would help ease some of the sting of last week. Now that said, the opposite side of that, the other hand of that, is that if they were to lose either or both of these games, which I wouldn't predict at this point, but if they were to lose them, it would only magnify obviously the loss, right? And so that they have an opportunity from an outsider, right? Like I'm not wearing the red and black, but I do think that they have an opportunity to kind of not erase, but very much minimize those two. A lot of people, you're not going to win a rivalry game and then beat a pretty good Pitt team and then just say, well, but this one game where we play, like you said, football is weird. Things happen. The ball bounces different ways. You kind of understand mistakes. Again, it doesn't erase it, but I do think it kind of helps you forget it if it can happen. So I lean Louisville here. Maybe Pitt can cover. I do think there's a pretty likely scenario where Louisville could win it going away. I don't mean by like 30, but 14-ish, kind of have it not in doubt. I think, it wouldn't surprise me if it was kind of like last week where they took a 2-score lead early in the fourth and then kind of learned from their mistakes of, hey, we just need the stop to really kill their spirit right now, or we need to score one more time to really kill their spirit. And if you go up 17, it obviously makes it much different. So I don't know, that's kind of the way I see it going down. Sounds like you like Louisville as well. So where can people follow you? Where can they get all of your content and previewing the game this week and everything that you'll put out?
Well, they can find it at cardinalsportszone.com for all the writings, our write-ups on the game, the previews, the recaps, stuff like that. For the video version, you can find that at the Cardinal Sports Zone YouTube channel, which is just at Cardinal Sports Zone. I was TJ. In closing, I feel like I'm on the stand here. In closing, I almost thought football hated me this weekend because you had that game against Stanford, and then yesterday, the Steelers and the Ravens game, which was one of the best games of the day. We were in a similar situation to where we could have lost by field goal at the end, but the defense stood up and prevented that from happening. So I almost didn't even contact you today. You put up a tweet today that said something about like the Florida State YouTube wasn't taking they weren't taking comments or anything. And the chat was disabled.
It's disabled, yeah.
Well, my chat's been disabled all weekend, as I told you, and I just wasn't sure that I was going to be football ready. But I'm excited. You got Pittsburgh coming in, 4 p.m. game. I'm ready.
Should be a lot of fun. Yeah, the Seminoles were off this weekend and the Bucks were off this weekend. So I was you seen those on Facebook where you're marked safe from some kind of a calamity or a natural disaster. That's how I felt. Yeah. Marked safe from football this weekend with both my teams on the bye.
Okay, so y'all won the bye week. I love it. That's still a victory.
Yeah.
You didn't lose.
Second of the year. So, Jeremy, I appreciate you a ton for hanging out, man.
Not a problem. Can't wait to talk to you next week when we talk about those dirty cats down the road.
Thanksgiving week. It'll be a lot of fun. I appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate BetUS for their support as well. We'll talk to you guys soon here on College Football Addiction.